Wow, what an impressive looking group. I am Charlie E. Rant, president of the Downtown Rotary Club, and it is my honor today, representing the Rotary Club and the Chattanooga Kiwanis Club, to welcome all of you to the 2019 United Way Kickoff Luncheon. Welcome to Reimagine. This is the 31st year that Rotary and Kiwanis have hosted the United Way Kickoff Luncheon. Both clubs are philanthropic organizations that are here to serve Chattanooga and have a long tradition of leading and participating in the United Way campaign. The success of our local United Way campaign is vital to the fabric of our community. Funds raised in our campaign assist Chattanooga in many ways, and it is our pleasure and our honor to host this United Way Kickoff Luncheon. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Turnay Jordan, Senior Pastor of Mount Canaan Baptist Church, to give our invocation. Dr. Jordan.
May we pray? Father, thank you for being the original creator of all things. We're truly grateful to share in this awesome community and in this awesome country. We pause to remember and commemorate the unity that we as a country shared September the 11th, 18 years ago yesterday. We pray for those families during this season, and we bless your name. As we gather here as a community today to reimagine and to rethink how we as a community can develop more creative ways to engage our community for greater impact. We thank you for the United Way, its leaders, its employees, its board members, volunteers, and its community partners and donors. Help us today as we try to impact those who are less fortunate and help this community develop more stable lives and stable families. Help us to find more creative solutions to our community's greatest challenges. We thank you for this community that has come together. Bless our time together. Bless the food that it might be for our physical bodies, as our time together is for our spiritual souls. Amen.
Hello, my name is Mike St. Charles, and I'm honored to be the 2019 United Way Campaign Chair. And first of all, keep eating. We know we're starting a little bit early, but we have a lot to do, and we wanted to make sure it would get all in. Now, many of you know that I am an attorney. And United Way heard that an attorney and a microphone are a dangerous combination. So they have a script for me, and they have a watch, but I want to let you know that I consider them aspirational and not absolutes. I'm going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about thank yous, talk about United Way, and talk about imperatives. Let's start with the thank yous. Whenever I think about celebration, I think about the Peanuts gang and the Happy Dance. And I especially think about Snoopy and his Happy Dance. This meeting today celebrates the impactful work that's being done in our community. Work that is too complex to do alone and too important not to do together. We are here today because we are committed to making a difference We are committed to giving back. Now, I want to call your attention to what's at your table. We have there, I think, ping pong balls that are in votives. And what we would like for you to do sometime during this meeting is take the time to sign one of those ping pong balls and put it in the silver bucket that's next to your table. Because to honor your commitment and commemorate your commitment to our community, we want to ensure that your name is represented in United Way's new Hub for Social Innovation. So after you do that, and when the new hub is open, which will be in early 2020, we want you to go by, find your ping pong ball, and it will be creatively integrated into the new space. Now I want to do a few thank yous. I want to recognize groups that exemplify commitment and support of United Way. Please hold your applause until the end. Thank you to our platinum sponsor, Southern Champion Trade, to our gold sponsors, the Weldon F. Osborne Foundation and Sound Force, as well as the other sponsors who allow us to make this event free and open to the public. Thank you to Cornerstone Partners. These are our top 10 corporate partners. Not only do they run incredible workforce campaigns, they give back to the community in so many ways to make impactful work through their time, treasure, and talent. Thank you to Rotary and Kiwanis. Your years of partnership have permitted us to share the United Way messages with many audiences, including this incredible audience here today. Thank you to the United Way Board. Your dedicated service, your financial contribution, and your advocacy will have a lasting impact for years to come. Thank you to my campaign cabinet and the United Way staff. Your hard work is yielding great results, and the best is yet to come. Lastly, and most importantly, thanks to each of you, including members of my family and firm sitting at that table over there, for your support to me individually and for United Way, and for what you do individually and collectively to make our community better. Now let's move on to United Way. Most organizations are focused on addressing a specific need and providing a specific product or service. United Way is not focused on a specific need, service, or product. As an organization sitting at the intersection of nonprofits, for-profits, individual donors, and the needs of our community, United Way takes a comprehensive approach to addressing community needs in the focus areas of health, education, and family stability. In analyzing how our community may need to change to more effectively improve lives, United Way realized that it needed to change. United Way has reimagined how it can spark transformative, powerful changes, not only in our community, but within the organization itself. United Way has reimagined how it engages with you, how it invests in our community through partner agencies, and how it brings together community resources to solve problems. Having been a part of this 3-year reimagination process, I am a champion of the new ways United Way utilizes community data, collaborative partnerships, and social innovation to direct resources where our community and neighbors need them the most. We couldn't do it without our United Way partner agencies and other nonprofits. Please stand if you're employed by a United Way nonprofit partner or another charitable organization. Please stand. Thank you for the impactful, essential work you do for our community every day. The work is too important to do alone. It's too complex to do alone and too important not to do together. We are successful when our community is successful. To help our community succeed, we are excited to announce the annual fundraising goal of $11.3 million. We are very motivated by this goal, yep. And we know this goal is attainable only if we work together. We all understand that money is an important part of United Way's work, but community impact is the end goal. And money is just one vehicle we use to achieve it. To help you understand what dollars do, I want to share with you a few other impactful numbers. 23,000. That represents the number of individuals and families who were connected with local resources through our 211 service last year. 19,250. That represents the number of children who received free books on a monthly basis through the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is managed by United Way. 19,000. That's the number of donors who together fuel this great work. And finally, 13,000, which represents the number of volunteers that gave in meaningful ways so we could accomplish our work. These are numbers of impact beyond the dollar. There's urgency to address the most pressing problems in our community, and you can make a difference. Now for the imperative. We're all familiar with Bob Corker and the many positive things he has done for our city, our county, our state, our country, and really the world. An extremely important accomplishment was the enactment on a bipartisan basis and with the support of United Way Worldwide of the End Modern Slavery Act. Bob's chief of staff, Todd Womack, attended a meeting in Atlanta where the speaker was educating the audience on human trafficking and its crisis. At the end of his talk, he asked the question, "If not you, who?" This simple, direct question made an impact on Todd. He knew a few people that could make a difference, and he owned his ability to be one of them. He got together with Bob and brought him up to speed on the crisis. And together, through their collaborative efforts, we now have a law that will save millions of lives. Like human trafficking, there are many issues and needs that affect our community, issues that we often do not see or even hear about. Last year, Bryant Ellis was facing one of those issues. Bryant is an Army veteran, a proud citizen who has beat cancer and who struggles with PTSD. Life is challenging for him. Bryant lives in a mobile home on his brother's property. His power source was a temporary, out-of-code, unreliable, dangerous arrangement. Jermaine Atkins, a United Way volunteer, and a member of the IBEW, Chattanooga, heard about Bryant's situation. Rather than simply funnel him to the Times Neediest Fund, where he could receive some financial donation, he took it upon himself to make a difference. He rallied a number of electricians that volunteered their time over the weeknights so that Bryant could have safe, permanent electricity. Jermaine owned his ability to make a difference, and he utilized the power of community to meet the needs of a neighbor. Paraphrasing the word of a famous philosopher, Dr. Seuss, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, things will not get better. It's not. If not you, who? If not you individually, your family, your organization, then who? Let United Way help you be the who. I can think of no one better than Leslie Scarce that can explain exactly how United Way does just that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Good afternoon. Y'all, we would be remiss as he's walking off stage. He's going to hate that I'm doing this. But not only does Mike St. Charles being taken on this role of being the biggest volunteer for United Way this year, what you may not know is that he spent the 2 previous years serving as our board chairman. And so I think, Mike, there's no one in history, perhaps, who has served in the way that you have. So would you join me in thanking him for what he's doing for this community? I want to ask you a question. What was your favorite childhood toy? I'm serious. Think about it with me. And what was it about that toy that made you so happy? I'm going to tell you about mine. It's Christmas 1984, and with huge anticipation, you got to love the hair curlers, right? With huge anticipation, my brother and I scurry down the stairs just as dawn is breaking through. My heart was pounding so fast. You see, I wanted only one gift that Christmas. And it was a dream gift that was not available in stores. It was only available in my imagination or perhaps in Santa's workshop. As a kid at the age of 6 who loved to draw and create, who loved journals and pretty pens more than I loved Barbie, I had asked for a pad of paper as tall as me. Yes, a 4-foot tall pad of paper for Christmas that year. And can you believe it? As I rounded the corner into the living room, there it was. I felt pure joy. I spent years using that gift to create, to do my homework, to leave notes for my parents, and I'm pretty sure it even lasted through my brother's entire childhood too. Now, picture your memory, your favorite toy. Today, what elicits that same joyful response for you? We've got a lot in common. I bet when you think back to your favorite toy, it sparked your imagination, involved sharing with others, and it brought a sense of joy. The same can and should be said about our common love for community, right? Maybe we define community differently. It might be your family, the people on your street, your faith, your school, maybe the entire city. But we all gather here today around a common interest, community. So let me ask you something else. In your communities, is the imagination to solve big problems together a reality? And does the experience bring true joy? These things are still deep inside of every single one of us. Sometimes we just need that spark rekindled. Let's watch something.
Think back to when you were a kid. Back when your dreams were as big as slaying dragons and you lacked all fear. When you believed all things were possible. When your life ran on hope and you knew you could make a difference if you simply tried. Glancing through old photographs, you will find a person who valued meaning more than money, ideas more than likes, and presence more than activity. Before you believed that you were too small, you saw someone who is bigger than the problems around them. Someone who banded together with friends to make opportunities out of obstacles, who engaged their imagination to dream about a future not yet seen by anyone else. Your goals may have changed, but you are still you. And though you may not want to storm the castle anymore, we all still desire to make an impact in a way that engages our passions and hearts. Our community needs that version of you. Your skills, your passions, your perspective. We need your imagination. They may not breathe fire, but our neighbors face dragons every day. Families face obstacles to stability, education, and health. The good news is that together we can fight these problems. We are asking you to reimagine with us. We believe that our community has more to give than to take. Reimagine that our abundant ideas, abilities, and talents are greater than the things we lack. Reimagine that building real solutions for those in need may be as simple as dreaming alongside your neighbors. Our imagination has changed, but that doesn't mean we have to abandon it. Let's empower our community. It all starts with something that has the power to change everything. You. It all starts with you. Community Reimagined.
I love that little boy's voice. He's right. Our goals may have changed, but you are still you. And United Way is all about sparking the imagination for community problem solving, engaging people of all backgrounds to do it together, and then experience real impact. But to reimagine our community, we have to first be willing to open our eyes to the realities around us. At United Way, we have a vision, and it's that everyone, no matter what zip code they're born into, or the disability, or the challenge they face, can achieve their full human potential through pathways of education, health and well-being, and economic stability. But we have some root issues that are threatening that vision. They're many, they're complex, but if we reimagine, there's no limit to what we can do. But today, I want to focus on one of those root issues with you. What do you think when you see this word behind me? Whatever it is that you're thinking, let's reimagine it by looking at it in some new ways. The United Way is adept at using data to unpack trends and proactively respond. And on September 20th, next Friday, we're joining with our colleagues from across the state to release a groundbreaking study on ALICE, an emerging economic class that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. ALICE are individuals that work, and they earn just enough to fall outside of that standard poverty line and assistance, but they don't have the resources to really make it. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of this report today. Don't tell anybody, okay? I'm not supposed to do this. Some call ALICE the working poor or the shrinking middle class, but what we have found in our report is a much deeper, often hidden, and far too common story about our neighbors. Lean into this with me. We found that 39%, that's more than 1 in 3, Hamilton County households struggle to meet basic needs. Now, that's the equivalent of 3 people sitting at your table right now. Let's put some real numbers to that. A quarter of our county earned less than $35,000 last year. In single-parent households, that median income drops to around $25,000 a year, and in some neighborhoods, that income plummets to $9,000 a year. The trade-off for these families, do I put food on the table or pay the light bill? Then factor in reliable transportation, growing housing costs, unforeseen medical bills, childcare gaps. For Alice, just one flat tire or a sick babysitter can cost them their jobs and plunge them back into financial crisis. And the impact on children in Alice families, well, it's really, really hard to have vision for the future when you're stuck in the sustained toxic stress of today. There's brain science, actually, that backs that up, but it becomes a lot more real to me when I think about conversations like one I had last year with a young man, brilliant, straight-A student, raised in a household that struggles. And when we talked about the opportunities in front of him in the city for jobs and education, he looked at me and he said, "Miss Leslie, those things aren't for kids like me." We've got to get ahead of this issue, and we need to do it fast because we also know that the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development projects that 70% of Tennessee jobs are vulnerable to automation. And the jobs most vulnerable are the lower wage jobs. Alice jobs are going to be the very first to go away. And that's why we're proud that we partner with the Chamber and Chattanooga 2.0 and the Future Ready Institute so that as a community, we can prepare a strong future workforce. Last week, I had this conversation with Mayor Coppinger, and he said something that I think sums it up. He said, people think poverty, they think urban core, or they think unemployed. What I know is we can drive into every corner and cul-de-sac in our county and find poverty. We need to rethink poverty. It's our neighbors. I want to tell you what Alice looks like in real life. 2 Fridays ago, it was 98 degrees outside, and an email came through the United Way website to me. And it was from a woman who lives here in Chattanooga, and she was writing for help. She said, I've got 2 young children in my home and a baby on the way to be delivered in the next week or 2. She is the sole income provider for her family. She works as a server at the Cracker Barrel, and then also on the side cleaning houses in order to help make ends meet. She was writing because with the baby coming, she'd gotten behind on her bills and her utilities were about to be turned off. Here's what really got me, guys. She said, my home runs solely on one little window unit for air conditioning, and there's no way I can keep my children here without power to run that little unit. She went on to say, I'm generally really proud. I don't like to ask for help, but I'm now in a situation where if I don't find help, my children and I are gonna have nothing. Please help us. Don't y'all feel this? Alice, our parents, right? Working multiple jobs, often with little kids in the house, with little to no family or support network. And here's what happens in our systems as a result. As the foundation of stability becomes more fragile, stress increases, and support systems within the community feel harder to find. Now, this is perplexing, y'all, because right now in our community, we have a great asset. We have over 1,300 nonprofits and over 1,600 churches. That's almost 3,000 organizations in our community that raise money and love people. We have the passion. We have the resources. I suspect that it's a lot more to do with alignment and access. This disconnect leaves too many people trying to navigate a super siloed, difficult maze of community support, while in that daily strain, then the cycle continues. That's a lot, right? And can I be vulnerable for just a minute? I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to say this as the CEO of the United Way. But the truth is, I can feel super overwhelmed and ill-equipped to solve these problems. We all can, right? They can be overwhelming. Because it's not just this mama who wrote on that Friday afternoon. Our United Way's 211 will answer 40,000 phone calls this year from people just like her. And I'm proud of our staff on the other end of that line, and I'm proud of the network of resources that stands on the ready, but I am not proud of that number. It's far too high. And then I pause, and I remind myself of the big thing I've learned the last 4 years in this job at United Way. It's the resilience of the children and the families and the organizations we work with. And they teach me every day that our perceptions do create possibilities. We do have power and influence over the world around us. For 97 years, United Way has been that place where everyone can rally around that common belief that we can make a real difference in the lives of our neighbors if we choose to do it together. And how we do it, it's pretty simple. We do it through 3 focuses. Just like we're doing together today, we educate. We open our eyes to what's really happening, and we unpack data, and we listen to stories to find out about what's really happening, and then we want to share those with you. We engage, we share. We partner with networks of highly effective businesses and organizations to create simple, actionable ways to give, advocate, and volunteer. And then most important, we empower. We want passionate people to connect together and then give them the resources they need. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's training or connecting, but to lead the charge in community and solve problems together. So I want to share hope. I want to share 3 great stories of the reimaginers in our community that are achieving this together right now. Last year, Superintendent Brian Johnson shared a problem. Where are you, Superintendent? I think he's back there. He saw too many kids come into school unable to learn because they're carrying the burdens of not having enough food at home, or their families struggle with jobs or illness or medical bills. At the same time, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee's Medicare experts, Blue Care, saw the same families with the same struggles, especially accessing health care. And guess what? These are Alice families, right? So together we all asked the question, how might we take those 3,000 resources aligned and closer to those who need them? EPB joined in and a solution was envisioned. Let's put 2-in-1 kiosks through technology inside our schools and in children's hospital, where kids, teachers, and families can be empowered themselves to connect with the many resources available in our community. This is groundbreaking. And you imagine with us at this event last year, if you remember, we cast this vision. It was just a dream yet to be created, but each of you just gave $10. And through the collective of impact of that, we are ready to launch a prototype at Red Bank High School this fall. Collaborative efforts like this are what the Hub for Social Innovation is all about. Listen to this feedback I got last year. One community leader said, you know, Leslie, as nonprofits, at best, we spend 99% of our time with our heads down, focused on the crisis of today. It's really hard to lift up and see how we fit into the fabric of the community and collaborate. At worst, we can have a fear of collaboration, that if you win, I lose. Either way, it's time for a new way of working. These words and this feedback came up in a listening session where we were really trying to figure out why, as a community, we hadn't made big movement on indicators like health and well-being or economic mobility since the early 1980s. Others agreed we need a place and we need a process to solve problems differently. So board members and grassroots leaders and businesses and nonprofits all rallied together, and with the facilitation of Bridge Innovate, the vision for the Hub was born. 2 weeks ago, we celebrated the construction launch of the John P. Gary Hub for Social Innovation. I know Mr. Gary is sitting up front somewhere here. The Hub is 2 things. It is 8,000 square feet on the first floor of the United Way, open to all, and really well designed for collaboration and training and co-working. But it's also a community problem-solving effort that brings together the expertise of the C-suite and the grassroots to bring some new solutions to these age-old problems that we continue to struggle with. One leader said, the Hub is the R&D, the research and development for the social sector. I think that's a good way to put it. These partners with more on the horizon have come together to support the Hub and make it a reality. And at its core, the Hub is really a gift to the problem solvers in our community, to the Hamilton County schools, and Blue Care, and EPB, and Children's, and the hundreds of others who want to roll up their sleeves and get to work. Simply put, who solves community problems? We all do. The next reimaginers that I want to celebrate have been tackling these problems day in and day out for years. And at first glance, they appear to have the most to lose by championing community change. But they also believe what we believe: a connected community changes everything. They are United Way's traditionally funded partner agencies, and they've led heroic work in our community for a long, long time. And they rely on the 19,000 donors of the United Way to help fund and support their work. They knew it was time to transform how we partner together and how to use these dollars we raise every single year towards more transparent, data-informed, and collaborative impact. The goal was simple: greater return on community. We're 9 months into a whole new process, and here are some early impacts of your investment and United Way's partnership and their creativity. Now, I want you guys to stick with me. I'm going to go really fast, but these are things that you're going to want to hear, okay? Northside Neighborhood House noticed needs rising in the north end of the county. Partners wanted to move out there, but it's expensive to open office space, right? Overhead, everything that goes with that. So as a result of this funding and this work, there are now 6 organizations under one roof serving the needs of our neighbors in the northern end of the county. That's awesome. Expanding quality childcare is a really big priority in our city right now. And the YMCA, through this funding, was able to add 140 new quality seats for our youngest learners in the city. And they've launched the very first language immersion preschool for our Latino families. Meet Robert. Robert spends his days at Orange Grove, but he also volunteers at Signal Centers. Reimagining is not limited to organizations that are New Kids on the Block. In fact, Orange Grove and Signal Centers together represent a combined 125 years serving our community. But they teamed up for innovation funding to offer job training, placement, and skills training for hard workers just like Robert. But that's not all. Boys and Girls Club of Chattanooga took their work outside of the traditional walls and started a new club on site at the Girls Leadership Academy in Chattanooga Prep. Goodwill, the partnership, and Google teamed up to offer job training and placement for women in the domestic violence shelter at the partnership. The Jewish Federation expanded to help more elderly folks who are aging at home, and more kids are going home on the weekends from school with food in their backpacks as a result of Ringgold United Methodist Church. You guys, this is just a glimpse of the many new investments made through this new process and the kind of collaboration we're excited to celebrate. But know this too, our value is more than money. Through this rich process of learning together, we had paired up 2 organizations that on the surface seem to have very little in common. McCamey Animal Shelter and the Partnership for Families, Children, and Adults. So you know what they're thinking, right? Animals, humans, like what do we really have in common? And as they begin to work more deeply and finding ways to find common ground, they recognize that women in the domestic violence shelter, one of the primary reasons why they don't leave for help is they don't want to leave their pets behind. And in that same moment, McCamey said, wow, we can do something about that. Y'all, that's the power of creating space and a new process for people to think and work differently. Finally, let's imagine or consider how our companies are reimagining their role in community problem solving. Kenco is a local, very well-loved organization that has expanded now to have 80 sites across the United States. Their CEO, Dennis Riley, knows well that the companies that attract and retain the very best talent, that have engaged employees and great brand recognition have robust corporate social responsibility efforts. And he's right. Harvard Business Review says that engaged employees are 40% more productive at work. That's like getting 2 more days out of your work week. Riley imagined his workforce engaged in a whole new way. Instead of just reading a book on culture, they imagined building it by getting staff out of the office and volunteering together. Instead of offering training on diversity and inclusion, they imagined practicing it with employees by rolling up their sleeves and joining Women United or Emerging Leaders. Don't miss this. Great companies can focus on their own priorities and their bottom line, engage employees, and do good at the very same time. So Kenco and United Way, we're teaming up. We are co-creating a digital and in-person experience where employees can learn about local issues like Alice, organizations they care about, give, lend their voice, and volunteer. The caring power of the Kenco community is then measured and harnessed in hours, dollars, and stories of lives changed. Friends, when I feel overwhelmed by the scale and the complexity of our problems, I pause and I remember these stories and so many more. We don't just believe, we know that our collective ability to solve our problems are so much bigger than the challenges that we face. And we need you with us. That is what it means to live united. Just one more thing. I want to revisit my initial question. Could a community giving experience really result in imagination, sharing, and joy? Meet Ken Smith. Ken is the Avondale neighborhood president, former loan officer, and he's also a United Way board member. He knew that Avondale's a unique neighborhood, and they're really wrestling with the rapid growth of Chattanooga, and at the same time, the rapid growth of Alice families in their neighborhood. In fact, 59% of Avondale residents are struggling to meet those basic needs. So as Ken looked around at his neighbors in his community, he noticed something. He noticed that home ownership among minorities seemed really rare. So he connected with Dr. Eileen Rayberg at the United Way, our director of data and strategy. And together they uncovered that what they thought and felt was really true. In fact, in 2016, countywide, just 200 Black families applied for conventional home loans compared to 4,000 white families. Our banking partners want to lend more in neighborhoods like Avondale, but they don't always have the pathways. So Ken decided to do something about it. The desire, Avondale residents want to own their own homes and they want to invest in their neighborhoods. The solution? Empowerment. Ken leaned into that problem. He worked with the United Way to garner a grant from Wells Fargo and First Tennessee to start a 6-part home ownership training. Hope for the Inner City provided space. Everlina Holmes and her fellow community champions encouraged people to participate. And the result is new pathways for home ownership opened up for our neighbors. 2 cohorts have already completed this process, and a third is on the ready, asking to begin. And listen to this. A concerned home builder has stood up and is offering to build low-cost homes for the families who complete this course. Think about it. Ken saw a problem. He used his natural resources and his passions and connected with neighbors to do it together and imagine what could be. They decided to share and make it happen side by side. And in a reflective email from Dr. Eileen Rayberg to our whole staff about what a magical experience this was, she closed it with simply one line. My heart was full last night. A full heart sounds an awful lot like childhood joy to me. Every obstacle is an opportunity. It all comes down to how we use them, which is why we're so glad to be welcoming Michael McCatherine to join us today. Michael serves as the Senior Principal of Enterprise Innovation. That's a big title, Michael, at Chick-fil-A. And he knows a lot more than chicken, although I'm pretty sure that they've perfected that by now. He's going to be using his lengthy experience with innovation and community to really talk about what innovation is, what it isn't, how we can shift our thinking so that we can all know how to reimagine together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was terrific. Thank you. Big cheers. Chattanooga. Whew, man, I'm so happy to be here. Hey, before I get started, I want to thank Ada and Stephen with United Way. They have made this journey for me so warm and supportive, and I just really appreciate that. Also, I've been in the restaurant business all my life, and you may have noticed that there are folks walking around, ladies and gentlemen in bow ties, who got up really early this morning to give you the hospitality that you're enjoying today. Can we let them hear our appreciation to these walls, please? I'm excited to be here because it's Chattanooga. You don't hear the conversations I get to hear when I'm in Atlanta. I run around in audiences and in groups of other people who do innovation similarly to I hear them talking about who's doing what around the country. And inevitably, somebody mentions Chattanooga. And when I mean Chattanooga, I mean the people in this room. I don't mean the venture capitalists out there standing in long bank lines or whatever you call it. I'm talking about the people who are actually on the ground making a difference. And I'm talking about this room. And that's why I'm so happy and privileged to be here to speak to you. I'm not going to give you any of the answers. I don't claim to have the right answers. I will give you hopefully some provocative thoughts that you can take back with you, and maybe even some nuggets, not nuggets, advice or ideas that you might take back with you to employ on your own. Okay, so I believe in the innovation process so fully and so deeply because I've researched it back in the days of Greece when actually design thinking originated. I have lived it at work, I've lived it in my personal life, I've applied its principles and processes to my own conversations, be it one-on-one or even groups like this, and it works every time. When there's a problem to be solved, the innovation process can work. And what I love about the idea of Reimagine is that is not a project, that is not a one-time drop, that is not a theme. It's a way of looking at how we do things. But as reimaginers, we need a process to do it effectively. There was a study done in the 70s of elementary school kids when they brought them to a new elementary school that had no fences. They told them to go play. Where do you think they went? They stayed close to the building. A couple of weeks later, they installed a chain link fence out on the perimeter. Now, go play. Where do you think they went? They went as far as they could until they hit that fence. Man, it opened up all kinds of ways in creative play because they knew where the boundaries were. Now, some of the kids, like me, were happy there's a boundary because now I knew what to climb over. But that's the creative process. That's all about the innovation process. But there's one particular part of that innovation process that is absolutely key because it sets the trajectory for everything that follows. So let me set this up. Peter Drucker, grandfather of modern management still today, he introduced two critical questions that every organization, profit or nonprofit, needs to answer in order to be successful. Those questions: who does what? Who does what? That's an organizational management, those are organizational management questions you got to get right, or you won't be as successful as you could be. I want to introduce how the management approach and leadership approach can be changed, augmented, and evolved, because frankly, it's time it evolves, into an innovation mindset. And there's ways that we look at traditional leadership principles. I'll share one with you today that redefine traditional leadership and catapults change into an organization. Two of those questions added to Peter Drucker's are these: are we doing the right things, and are we doing things right? Are we doing the right things, and are we doing things right? Here's why it's that important. Raise your hand if you're a for-profit business, if you're here for a for-profit business. Come on, raise your hand, don't be shy. Okay, are you up the other round? All right, I gotta talk to you for a second. Okay, here's the deal. If you get one of these wrong, you're not gonna be as profitable as you could possibly be if you get one of these wrong. Profit's an important piece of having a platform from which you can contribute to the community around you. Without profit, there is no platform. Those words came from our founder, Truett. He believed in earning a good profit because that's the only way he could establish a platform to serve others in his community. Profit is important. You get one of these wrong, you're not going to reach your profit potential. For those of you who did not raise your hand, answering these questions provides clarity and focus. I think you'll agree there's more needs in the community than all the resources we have currently can solve. Clarity and focus will help us begin to solve one need at a time, but you got to get both of those questions correct. Who does what? And then, are we doing the right things, and are we doing things right? I also want to submit to you that innovation, yes, it is a process, but innovation is not about what we do, it's how we think about what we do. Now that's really important because I'm going to introduce a concept here in a minute that is counterintuitive to the way we've been brought up to think about how we do things. Okay? The first part of it is, man, you guys are letting it out. Chattanooga is reinventing how innovation should be looked at, how it should be approached. It's taking hold in other organizations around the world. And that is, it's changing it from a process that yields a process and a profit to care and compassion. That's brand new for the business world. It's new for a lot of us that grew up in an environment where, hey, this is not about care and compassion. This is about getting to a level of our careers that we feel good about, right? But what you guys are doing in this room is redefining that. And that's what needs to carry on. You guys are sitting on a gold mine. When this innovation hub opens, I hope there's like a Chick-fil-A grand opening with tents all the way around the block waiting for this thing to open. Because there's people who need you to be there with that kind of appetite for change. Not change for change's sake, not reimagined for reimagine's sake, but because there is an audience that you've identified needs your help, and there's a cause that needs to be met and a problem that needs to be solved. This is the place to do it, and then have the process to do it efficiently and effectively. It's a muscle that represents the future of how we do what we do. All innovation throughout history can be traced to a human need. It's all about human design, solving human problems. The problem is, a lot of us, over time, we're designing for the wrong humans. We design for our shareholders, we design for our officers, we design for our staff. Sometimes at Chick-fil-A, we design for our operators. Who are the people that we should be designing for? That's the real question. Every idea can sound like a great idea, unless it's looked at through the filter of, okay, well, what problem does this solve? Well, problems are so immense and so numerous, it's daunting. It's debilitating at times. Unless you can narrow it down to, okay, well, how many audiences do we serve? All right, here's what I want you to think about. And if you write this down on your phone, make a note or whatever, but we do this often at Chick-fil-A. We'll talk about who is the audience that we need to serve now. That doesn't mean the audience is less important than all the other audiences, or the ones that don't make the list are not important, but we can't serve all audiences equally well at the same time. But if we can identify the most important audience right now, and then we can talk about their needs to be met or problems to be solved. Here's what that looks like for us. We have almost 2,000 operators. That's what we call our franchisees. These ladies and gentlemen are the lifeblood of Chick-fil-A. They have been poured into, beginning with Truett and his son Dan, to create an organization through which they are developed to become contributors to the community. It started with, I want you to be mayor of the mall. I want everybody in that mall to know that you're the operator and that you're there to serve them, not to extract value from them, but to add value to them. That means I've got to understand them at a different level. So operators, as they grew in number, we had to determine, okay, we can't serve all their problems, solve all their problems. There's too many. We had to narrow it down. So we started thinking, how can we narrow down a big group of operators and help serve them better? So we looked at how many different variations there were of operators. So there's mall and there's freestander. Do all freestander operators have the exact same needs to be met? No, not at all. So we can break it down further. How about tenured operators versus brand new operators? Do they share the same? Do all tenured operators share the same needs? No, not at all. Well, what about tenured operators in rural areas versus urban areas? Do all urban operators have the same needs? Now we're getting close. Now we're getting close. You have to narrow down your audience to identify them in terms of, my audience is narrow enough when I can say they all share the same need to be met or problem to be solved. I can't serve all the audiences at once and do it well. I have to narrow it down. Now this is a little counterintuitive because that might mean, okay, well gosh, that means I'm serving 200 operators and not 2,000 operators. That doesn't feel good. Something's not right about that. I'm not doing my job well. I'm not providing the service that I'm supposed to be providing. But you're providing an immensely more efficient and effective service to those 200 than you would have if you kept trying to solve for 2,000. Know your audience. Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about how are you going to innovate? How do you innovate? We're at a turning point, people. Some of you are feeling it because some of you are living it. Some of you are on the outside of it and you're hearing about it this morning. It's time that we embrace this change, okay? How we innovate is becoming a more commonplace word, and it's a lot of times watered down because it's easy to water it down. But I want to invite you to think about something. Leading with an innovation mindset is different from leading through a traditional mindset. There's 3 traditional leadership principles that I want to talk to you about. One is humility. We've all heard about humility. We get that. It's putting others first, not taking credit for what the team does, and so on. We've read the books. We know what humility is. We get that. But in the innovator's mindset, through leading with an innovation mindset, it means a little something different. And this is a tough one. It means that I'm going to allow my thinking to be shaped by others. I'm going to allow others to shape my thinking. Man, that's hard. I don't know about you, but I didn't get to where I am today because of other people's ideas. Amen? Amen? This is South. Come on, people. But allowing others to shape my thinking means I am entering into collaboration with an empty head. I can't be the expert. Studies have shown that expertise in a subject matter creates rigid knowledge networks. The more expertise we have, the less likely we are to recognize breakthrough ideas. The less likely we are to even know the questions to ask to get to breakthrough ideas. As I enter into this work as empty-headed, non-expert, man, that's tough. That's tough. But I'm opening myself up to let others influence my thinking. Why is that important? Because now I have to be good at questions. I have to ask you about what your thoughts are. I have to ask you what you think about this, what you would consider, and draw out from you your thoughts. Questions invite collaboration. When was the last time you met somebody for the first time? Did you ask them to start off by making statements or asking questions? Questions are all about relationship. Collaboration is all about relationship. Transactions don't last. We have a saying, a couple of years ago we came up with it at Chick-fil-A because we realized that the competition was encroaching on our menu items, and you could get a version of what we serve. At one point, Wendy's had more chicken on their menu than beef. So, you know what Wendy's is, well, it's okay if you don't. So we had to figure out, okay, how can we further differentiate ourselves from the competitors? And we knew we had something special when it came to hospitality, but many operators were falling into the easy task because business was getting complex. I mean, you had sales that were increasing, you had transaction counts that were increasing, you had more team members to manage. Man, this whole thing is getting complex. I'm just going to write a check and my ad will show up somewhere. I'm just going to write a check and it'll be in the program. I'm just going to write a check and it'll be in the direct mail. Those are all transactional. Our competition does that. Now we've dropped ourselves into a more highly competitive environment than what we had before, but it's easier. What we needed to do is what we created, our raving fan strategy, and get back to the soul of why we were where we were, not what we were doing. What we were doing was just the platform to be able to influence positively those people around us. But I had to get back to relationships. So that's when Dan and Kathy started introducing things like the Core Four. Those are cues that everyone goes through in training. Things like a table touch, things like eye contact, things like asking, can I refresh your beverage? Not just grab it and ask, you need more? Little cues like that. Truett started it even before that with my pleasure. It took 3 years for that phrase to catch on. Because we thought he was crazy. He's like, you're not going to get a 16-year-old to say my pleasure with any type of authenticity. How many people have heard my pleasure at Chick-fil-A and thought that means it? Right? We're training. these heathens, these teenagers to have some manners. But the point is that we're pouring into the person, not on a transaction level, but on a relationship level. And that's what I'm asking and challenging all of you to do. The innovation process begins with who is my audience? And I can identify that more narrowly, and I can get to the nugget of really who is my audience that I can influence and change today. From there, I can have that conversation about, hey, tell me your situation. Let's discuss what's happening here. And here's what I love about the innovation process, and I love this about the hub, because it's going to happen here. You will have people who will need to be served around the table coming up with solutions that will serve them. That's a game changer. That doesn't happen if you enter into that as a transaction. That doesn't happen if you enter into that as an expert on what you think they might need. You've got to be empty-headed, right? Kill the experts. That's our saying. We have huge letters at Chick-fil-A. Kill the experts. The problem is we're all experts. Okay, the other one is trust. And I want to begin to wrap up with this. Trust is really important because your team needs to trust that when they come to you with an idea, that it'll be met with questions and not statements. The other piece of that is when they come to you with a problem that needs to be solved or an opportunity that they might see that may not be consistent with your vision of where you want to go, that you begin to kill the expert and approach that with questions and not statements. Because that's where beautiful, the dynamic of collaboration and getting to great ideas and not just good ideas, that's how it happens. It's got to happen day to day. You got to be good at asking questions. So I'll leave you with one idea before I leave. This is, you can take this with you, okay? I've done this and it is enlightening. Next time you go into a meeting, ask somebody subtly, say, hey, I want you to mark down every time you make a statement, and I want you to mark down every time I ask a question. When you come out of that meeting, you'll be shocked at how many statements you make. I would rather be not the smartest person in the room, I'd rather be the smartest person leaving the room because of all the questions that are asked. That is an ongoing capability that I believe if we're all going to reimagine the future in a way that is ongoing, we got to do. That's a muscle we need to work. And here's the deal. What you're doing, think about the time frame of an investment. If you write a check, that check doesn't last very long. Don't stop writing checks. Don't stop writing checks. But if you engage in a relationship, that is just a foundation. And if you look at what you're doing today as, hey, I want to see change happen while I'm doing what I'm doing. It's fulfilling for me, and I believe I serve a purpose in that way that needs to be met. But think about it like this. Think about the long legacy that you're building. That's what this is about. This hub is not about what happens, not just about what happens from all of you participating in that gold mine that's about to open right in your backyard. It's about what I'm doing that makes the next generation even more impactful, and the next generation even more impactful. There's some problems, there's some needs, there's some causes that will not be impacted during our lifetime. But guess what? They're also not going to be impacted during the next lifetime if we don't lay a foundation that is in the habit of an innovation mindset. Ask good questions. Empty your head of what you think you know. Forget everything you know about everything you know. You'll be enriched by it. Those you work with will be enriched by it. And those you serve will be enriched by it. I hope that you don't look at this time together as a one and done kind of thing. This is a way to shift our thinking as we move forward. This light bulb is like the international sign for innovation, isn't it? It's the international sign for ideas. Things happen when this thing lights up. But I want to challenge you to think about it and redefine it, Chattanooga. Come on. You're on your way there already. But this light bulb is used when this filament lights up, it creates awareness of what's all around it. I want to, instead of it lighting up and exposing others, I want you with an innovation mindset to engage others in the way we've talked about today and set this light so that it lights up in others, not on others. They've got a light bulb and asking for permission to light it. And they're asking for ways to light it. They need a process through which they can light it. They need to be asked questions. You'll see this light bulb go off in people. And then you begin to exponentially serve more people. I'm envious of Chattanooga. Atlanta is great, but it has its challenges. A lot of it is because the heart is not one that is not Chattanooga. I'm so honored and privileged to be in front of a group like this in your company, because what it means to the people that you influence. Use this as a springboard. Get busy in that hub. Make it have a waiting list every single day, because it will change how you change others. Thank you so much for your time.
Today was the absolute worst day ever. And don't try to convince me that there's something good in every day. Because when you take a closer look, this world is a pretty evil place. Even if some goodness does shine through once in a while, satisfaction and happiness don't last. It's not true that it's all in the mind and heart, because true happiness can be obtained only if one's surroundings are good. It's not true that good exists. I'm sure you can agree that the reality creates my attitude. It's all beyond my control, and you'll never in a million years hear me say that today was a good day. And all of this will be true unless I choose to reverse it. Today was a good day. And you'll never in a million years hear me say that it's all beyond my control. My attitude creates the reality. I'm sure you can agree that it's not true that good exists only if one's surroundings are good. True happiness can be obtained because it's all in the mind and heart. And it's not true that satisfaction and happiness don't last. Some goodness does shine through once in a while, even if this world is a pretty evil place. Because when you take a closer look, there's something good in every day. And don't try to convince me that today was the absolute worst day ever. My name is Kerrigan Collins, and I'm a junior at CGLA. My mission in life is to analyze the minds of others and help them understand themselves. Through becoming a psychologist, I want to teach others that knowledge is power, and that wisdom can be gained through having a better and deeper understanding of oneself. For the community of Chattanooga, I imagine a place where everyone feels both encouraged and empowered. Thank you.
Well, obviously, I was talking yesterday, I drew the short straw and have to follow Michael and Kerrigan. Good afternoon, my name is Rachel Gammon. I'm the CEO of the Northside Neighborhood House. And I love that point because it really challenges us to shift our perspective, right? To look at things a little bit differently. And today we've had a lot to unpack. We've had the opportunity to celebrate some great successes in our community. And I'm so grateful for the fellow nonprofits in this room who work hard day in and day out to really lift our neighbors up, and to Leslie and her team and their leadership at the United Way. And we've heard about some of the challenges, and the challenges are real. I think whether it be people we interact with in our work life, in our home life, or in our faith walks, we see people who face these challenges each and every day. And so I'm inspired. I'm inspired by the message that Michael brought us to really look at things differently. And I've been in this space for about 20 years and have seen our organization go through a lot of changes. And really, over the past 10 years, we've started moving pretty fast, and to the chagrin sometimes of our team, I feel like, because it can be tired when you're constantly trying to see how you can do things better. But we have in the mind, and the mind of the fellow nonprofits in the room, that we sometimes have to change because the people around us every single morning wake up and see challenges bigger and greater than ours. So I want to touch on just a couple of things, and Michael did a great way of segueing into this, because we're really talking about reimagining our commitment to the United Way in our community today. And sometimes that just looks at like taking a different look at how we approach situations, right? And recognizing that truly investing in people is where transformation happens. So I want to share a story with you about a transformative moment in my life as someone working with people and in the lives of my boys. So these are my boys. I've always said there's nothing that will age you like working with children. They're now in their early 30s, but I've known them since they were in kindergarten. And when they were in third grade, we had some missing Pokemon cards from the neighborhood house, and they were found in one of these boys' backpacks. And I approached the other twin and said, "Did your mom buy you all Pokemon cards?" And he said, "No." And I was like, "Oh, we've got a situation here." So when Mom came to pick them up, I pulled Mom into a room with the boys, and I said, I was really sad today because your son had taken some Pokemon cards. And she was hot. She was so mad. But guess what? She wasn't mad at him. She was mad at me. And as a 20-year-old, that was quite intimidating because Miss Susie has quite a personality. And as soon as she finished being really mad at me, I looked at her and I said, I was just as upset when I found those cards in that backpack because I know how hard you work every day. And I know that any need that your children have, you always provide. So I was mad too, and I understand your anger and your frustration. And in that moment, I went from being an accuser to an advocate. And I love those boys so much. And one of my favorite follow-up stories to that was the boys were in 8th grade at Chattanooga Middle School, and Miss Susie brought Bernard in, and it was almost like he was being pulled by his ear. And she said, "He got in trouble today." At this point, we didn't even have a middle school program. But she said, "He got in trouble today, and I've already blessed him up one side and down another, and I brought him because I want you to do the same thing." And since that time, because of your investment in the United Way, because your investment of time, because your investment of your dollars, those boys, I've seen them become husbands and attended both of their weddings. I've gotten birth announcement in the form of text messages when their first children were born, and they're now gainfully employed. One works as a manager at a hotel downtown, and the other works for a supplier at Volkswagen. That's because of the investment we have made in this community, in our children, and our families. And so, we have a huge challenge before us today because we are reimagining what the United Way looks like. And I've heard Leslie say so many times, it's not about a particular program, it's about a movement. And who creates movement? The people, right? That's our job. So our job today, and I challenge you to really look at how you're engaged with the United Way currently and how you're going to take it to the next level. I was able to take it to the next level when I changed roles and became a leader of my organization, I became a leadership giver to the United Way. One of the most exciting things to me as a leader of this community is the opportunity that each of us is going to have when the Innovation Hub opens, and we already have to sit at these community roundtables with each other and really unpack some of these huge system issues that we have that are keeping our Alice families where they are and are keeping people from opportunities that they deserve. Because I promise you, every Chattanoogan, every person in Hamilton County deserves to be sitting in a room like this and feeling as valued as we do every day. So I've got a couple of asks, and I'm going to wrap it up with that. So we're at a fundraiser, right? Kind of a fundraising kickoff. And amazingly enough, my two asks don't have anything to do with money today. We're going to get to that when we get into the employee campaigns. But your two asks are here. The first thing is, I'd like for you to pull out your cell phones. Don't be looking at what you have to do when you get back to work. Just release yourself from that pressure for just a moment. And I want you to take the first step in our journey together to start reimagining what this looks like. If you'll text reimagine to 66866, this is a great opportunity we have as a community today to start this journey together. They are going to blow our phones up, not too much, because too many texts would be, I'm looking at Stephen, he's like, not too many texts, so we're good here. But we're going to start sharing the successes, because I'll tell you, we need those. Does anyone ever have a day where you just need to hear a good story? Yes. So we're going to blow your phones up with that. We're going to blow your phones up with challenges on how you can get involved and ways that you can really start helping to transform this community. We've accomplished some amazing things, but there are still people who need our help. And so I want you to hold tight to that. The second thing that I want you to do, and again, I'm a teacher by trade, so we're gonna do a group activity, so just bear with me. And I'm gonna give you this challenge, and then Mike does have one more thing that he wants to say. But before you leave this room, I want you to turn to your neighbor. So just look at who your neighbor is, make eye contact with someone at your table. And once Mike gets up and shares his message with you, I want you to look at your neighbor. And I want you to say the one thing that you're going to do to commit to the United Way in a little bit deeper, in a little bit more meaningful way than you've ever done. Whether that's getting involved in volunteering, whether it's coming and being a part of the Innovation Hub, whether it's stepping up that gift just a little bit, maybe to where it hurts this year. I want you to tell your neighbor, because what happens is when you say that out loud, it plants that seed and it's going to help you remember that. But you're also going to have someone checking in on you in a few weeks and saying, have you followed through with that thing that you told me you were going to do? So again, thank you for being here today. Thank you for supporting the United Way. Thank you for reimagining what your role is going to be like for this next year as well.
The reason that I was board chair for so long is I'm a slow learner. And one thing that I neglected to do is I told you we had 10 cornerstone partners. I just didn't tell you who they were. And so I would like to formally recognize them, and it's McKee Foods Corporation, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Shaw Industries, Unum, the Electric Power Board, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Publix, Volkswagen, CBL and Associates, and the Chattanooga Coca-Cola Bottling Company. Now, the other good thing that you did is I said, hold your applause to the end. You just didn't realize it was going to be the end. So a round of applause for everybody, including you, and thank you for being here. We are done.